I know we're going to be getting to Mike Joyce at some point down the road. Weather has been an issue. Today's what, Wednesday? I think it poured Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think the rain is supposed to subside at some point later on this afternoon, hopefully dry out. This is supposed to dry out tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have some good conditions for Friday and Saturday. I think that's the forecast at this point.
Well, why wait? Let's talk to Mike Joyce, who
actually
is on hand in Keeneland Racecourse. He's been there for a couple of days.
Hey, Mikey.
Mike, fill us in. What's the weather like? What's the buzz like?
Pretty sure they call that rain, Britt. Pretty sure they call that rain. Yes, it's very moist out here as I'm right by the tobacco barn where Wesley Ward has his horses stabled, a little off of Rice Road. Rice Road is where all the Breeders' Cup horses have been stabled as of Monday of this week. They all had to be stabled there. So there's been a lot going on. We'll start with the Euros. They're all still in quarantine. I believe they get out of quarantine today at 4 o'clock, but they have been able to train. Most notably, Golden Horn, the ARC winner who came to the racetrack yesterday. They've been working on the training track here because the training track is a polytrack surface. So for the horses that are going to be running on the turf, we do know that there is a bit of similarity between the way the two play. And clearly, the main track has been an absolute mud bug. They've actually canceled the renovation break the last couple of days because there's literally no point. It's just a big old wet, sloppy surface. So they've been hitting the track, and there's been a lot going on. But the Euros still in quarantine today until about 4 o'clock.
Mike, is that why, because of the weather, is that why a horse like Beholder not even going to the racetrack, just kind of walking around the shed row? Is it weather related?
Same thing with Pharaoh.
Yeah, Farrell walking the shed road today. He just kind of stayed inside and undercover. There was some drama, though, in the American Pharoah camp. First of all, Bob Baffert, the trainer, had a flat tire on his way to the track this morning, so he didn't get here by training hours. Didn't really matter. They weren't doing much with Pharoah anyway. But we're going to take a look at him arriving yesterday. And, of course, the second most useful shot in all of horse racing after the bath is the horse walking off of the ramp. And you can see here American Pharoah handling all ramps equally, using the same amount of grace and aplomb, walking down the top of the ramp to the bottom of the ramp. I don't know why it draws throngs of media, but there you have it. We did our duty and got you the ramp shot.
Okay. All right, Mike. Here's you knew this question was coming. We're just a couple of days away from Breeders' Cup Friday. Who are the buzz horses so I can cross them off my list? Who are they right now, the horses that everyone's talking about that I know have no chance of winning because everyone's talking about them? Who are those horses?
You know what the most amazing thing is that I don't know one handicapper that will touch Nyquist with a 10-foot pole. And all he's done is won every race he's been in, a pair of grade ones. And the California horses are clearly superior. Rallis, who is the third best 2-year-old in Doug O'Neill's barn, heads back east and beats all the good 2-year-olds at Saratoga. So, I mean, it's amazing. I know it's not the strongest group of Colts and Geldings this year, but to me, the funniest thing I've heard is that not one person has said they like Nyquist in the juvenile.
But who do they like? Is there one name out there where everyone's talking about? I don't want to know who they don't like. I want to know, is there a name out there that I can't wait for so-and-so? Boy, I can't wait for this horse who's 15-1 you know is going to be 6 or 7-1 come post time. That horse, you haven't heard of that horse? That horse exists every year.
No, I haven't heard that horse just yet. The way things have sounded to me as we've been walking around the backstretch and talking to other handicappers is the consensus out there right now is that people are worried about Run Happy's work, and they're worried about the way he breaks. I'm not worried about either of those things because I just think he's a stone-cold freak, and I don't care what anybody else does that day, even Private Zone. I think Run Happy's a cinch. Nobody wants to take a stab against Songbird, and everybody thinks that American Pharoah has a serious pace advantage in this race, and that's really been the conversation with the Classic as far as tactically, how do you get there? At the press conference following the Classic draw, though, I will say this. The owners of Keen Ice, Jerry Crawford, he was as bullish as I've ever heard. He thinks they're going to win. And he said, look, me, Dale, all the connections, we went into the Travers thinking we had the best horse that we were going to win, and I feel like we're going to win the Classic as well. I've never seen that kind of confidence from an owner on the eve of such a giant race, especially when he has to take on horses like American Pharoah and Beholder. And let's not forget, after American Pharoah and Beholder, it's not like this is just a walkover for one of those two horses. There's some talented runners in there, including Frosted, the big question mark horse, and Smooth Roller. We'll talk about him in a little bit. And then Glen Eagles, who's the one horse we haven't really seen yet. He's still in quarantine. He didn't hit the track today. We're still waiting for him to come out. And I'll tell you what, he's the real wild card in here because Aidan O'Brien, we've seen what he's done in the Classic. I know he's never won it, but he's come close a few times.
Now, Mike, I got to ask you, were speaking of the post position draw, which was last Monday, nighttime distaff and classic they drew. Are there any sort of thoughts about post positions? Is anyone concerned? I know Tonalist got the rail. Any sort of talk about that?
That's all Clement got was the rail.
Yeah, that's Christophe Clement is number one, and not the way he really planned on it. He drew the rail in 4 races, so that wasn't great. I think the biggest thing was Golden Horn getting the rail. People thinking that wasn't the best spot for him. I think it's the only knock on him. He's so far superior, it appears, than these horses here in the U.S. I believe most people think if he's 90%, he still runs off and wins the turf by a length or so. But that was really the only thing. Beholder getting the outside, I think most people think that's okay, although people point to post-position statistics that I think are completely irrelevant to this race. And as far as the turf races, the races going a mile and a 16th on the main track, I do think you don't want to be hung out wide. I think most people thinking if you're, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 are out there, you are at a major disadvantage, especially those outside 3 posts. So you do want to be somewhere closer on those races because there's not much of a run-up into that first turn.
Last question. How much rain have you guys received? When is it going to stop? And what kind of effect do you think it's going to have on the grass racing?
A lot, seems like never, and a bunch. Don't forget that the Euros, they hand select their horses to come out to Keeneland based on their affinity for a firm turf course because they're used to running in the Breeders' Cup at a Santa Anita or something along those lines where we have these much firmer turf courses in the U.S. than they have overseas. So when it rains and it gets soft, that's not necessarily what the Euros want. Now, the turf course today is officially listed as soft right now, but I do think it's going to dry out. The rain's supposed to stop today. We'll see how much it can dry out in the next few days. It's not supposed to get much over 60, 65 degrees in the next several days. So we'll see what happens. The main track, it'll dry out fine. It'll be fast. Should be just fine for the Breeders' Cup. But those turf races, I think there is some concern.
Well, Mike, thank you so much. Such a trooper out there. I know the weather isn't fantastic, so go get dry. You can't have a cold for Breeders' Cup Day. And thank you so much for all that fantastic coverage.
No more questions from you, Mike. You're excused to go dry off.
I've got a live studio audience of Wesley Ward here, too. We're right by his barn. He came over to say hi. See, there he is. He's walking away.
Hi, Wesley.
He just invited us to his barn. I'm going to go over to Wesley Ward's barn.
Tell him I like Green Mask quite a bit in the turf sprint.
I love Green Mask.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
Will do.
Mike.